Welcome to Cultivated Live for Thursday, September 19th. My name is Jay Rosenthal. I'm the co-founder of Cultivated Media, the host of this program called Cultivated Live. And since we launched Cultivated way back in November 2023, our goal has been to be cannabis industry first, providing you with the most important, insightful, useful, and timely information. We do that through our daily newsletter. We do that through this daily live stream. We do that on LinkedIn and YouTube and in our daily newsletter, which you should get at Cultivated.news. Every time I say that and you're on, Krista, I blow it. Every time you're not on, I say it correctly. But you are Krista Raymer. On Thursdays, you come here to talk about cannabis retail. Krista,
Yes.
welcome.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, I could just look. It says Cultivated.news literally on my hat. I see it in my screen in front of me.
It's okay. I make you nervous. It's fine. We're just going to talk
I
retail.
don't make me nervous. It's just that I go it so fast and then I want to get through it so we can get to our conversation. Nonetheless, Krista, you join us on Thursdays to talk cannabis retail.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, I read this somewhere on probably your blog, about average basket size. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
common phrase that bud tenders talk about, that store owners talk about, and even the industry at large says our
Mhm.
average basket size is bigger than other similar size retail. Like, that seems like a good metric. Is it? Because sometimes what seems like a good metric can be tricky.
Yeah, I mean, even when we look at statewide reporting, we often use average basket size as like a health measurement. If you can think back to the first couple of years of legalization, that was like one of the first things that we used to measure pricing compression in Canada. And the average basket size is a good temperature check KPI, but it's not a very directional KPI. And when we walk into stores, we kind of like get reminded of this all the time. So I've been on site, I was speaking with some store managers this week, and it got me thinking again about how we coach teams and what we do at a store level to support building basket sizes. So if we say our average basket size is $74, what does the team know to do with that information? And then how do we support the team to execute to that 74
Be-
target, for
because
example?
I'm simple, and I'm going to say something that I actually know is wrong, but let me just to highlight this. If you
Okay.
say to me, I'm a store manager and I want my team on the floor to say, look, our average basket size is $74. How do we get it to $77?
Mhm.
Like, I'm not like, but then I try to sell $77 worth of stuff to someone who's buying way less generally. It's a big jump. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
looking deep enough into the numbers. Is that right?
Yeah, you're definitely not. And what ends up happening is that we set our teams up to fail. So we say, build your basket size, get our customers to spend more than $74, but very few customers are actually spending more than $74. So we've just created like a benchmark for them to try and hit that they don't hit very often. And that's part of the problem. So let's talk about like how the average is calculated and then maybe like what to look at instead. So depending on the POS system, depending on what data sources, you might either have an average or a weighted average. In either situation, they are going to be slightly misleading. So let's say that you have a transaction at a dollar and you have a transaction at $100. The average is going to be in between. Now, if you run some more transactions in and around $50, a weighted average wouldn't even really tell you that much of a different story, depending on exactly what it is, maybe nuanced. Now, what ends up happening is that $1 transaction and that $10 transaction are outliers and influence the entire data set. And so, well, what if we dropped in like 100 transactions at $50? It wouldn't give us a good sightline of what is actually happening. And so, we need to dig in and understand how within a basket size, for example, where all of the pricing sits and what dollars are spent where. So, what I mean by that is saying, like, if we have an average basket size of 74, what is our different spend based off of different tiers? So maybe $10 to $20, 20 to 40, for example. And then how many transactions are happening? Because you might have a lot of volume or a lot of customers, say, for example, purchasing south of $20, but their dollars don't weigh very much when we think about averages. And so it doesn't lift, it doesn't give you a good picture. So in the 74 example, in this particular store, speaking with the store manager, I'm like, actually, did you know that the majority of your customers spend $50? So although your average is 74, you've got a couple outlier customers that spend a lot and it pulls up the average, but most of the transactions are sitting at 50. So what do you think you and the team in this store can do to lift your average basket size? Instead of getting customers to spend more than 74, we actually just have to focus on getting the customers to spend more than 50. And maybe that's like 55. And so understanding what the numbers are actually telling us and then how to coach the team to those numbers is really important if you want to actually lift basket size and understand how what basket size is telling you about the business.
It's a little bit high school math. And I say that because
Yeah.
there's like the median, the mean, and the mode. Like
Yes.
those things, this is the application of those things. So you can
Yes.
actually get a true picture. Because your
Yeah.
example, like it'd be much more effective getting the most often customer who's at $50 to 55 than trying to
Hmm.
get the $50 customer to 75, right? They're never
Yeah.
going to get there. It's too big of a leap. That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. And then I guess the next obvious question is like, how do you do that? Is it like, discounts doesn't seem to like how would you do that how do you train teams to do that? What ideas do you have for retailers now to like get to that?
Okay. So there, you're going to have inventory, the people in store, and marketing is basically three different levers that you could pull that would influence basket size. From a inventory perspective, it's like, do we have the right price points and the right assortment to hit the goal that we're trying to achieve? So if we want to lift basket sizes at $50 and we can see that the average eighth in that basket is sitting at, say, for example, $30, and then we're selling like maybe a pre-roll pack or something in that transaction, do those two price points or what the products are that are getting purchased the most frequently, are they going to lift that basket size? In most instances, we probably haven't supported the team with having the right price point of products in store. So it's like, what's our assortment? How many options do we have in different pricing buckets? And then how are they actually priced from a numbers and cents perspective? Next thing would be your people. So it's like, how do your bud tenders feel when trying to sell to a customer? When do they know to push? When do they know to back off? When do they know how to talk about a product and share information that gets the customer comfortable with spending a little bit more? So the people piece. And then the third piece is the marketing. And it's like, have you built promos that potentially are not supporting our goals? And so a lot
Right.
of the time I'll see promos built that are like, that's what we're trying to achieve in our average basket size. And the frequency of those purchases is pretty low. Whereas we want to think about promotions that are happening in store in two ways. What are the promos that are the basket driver? So the reason the customer has come into the store, or what are promos that are going to help like support a basket? So be an impulse based promotion. Either of those then can supplement your understanding of basket size. So maybe if we are regularly selling eights, maybe it makes sense to do some kind of bundle at 55 instead of at 50. Um, if we are doing some level of impulse, maybe it makes sense to add a couple pre rolls with the caveat that if you spend $50, you can get this pre roll at X price. So there are ways to do it. We just have to understand what the components of the sale look like with the customer.
And then that seems like an easier lift or easier described than getting someone to spend $25 more. It's like a 50% purchase bump, like that's never going to happen. But think of it in, I think what you're saying is almost smaller increments and targeted to the exact right customers that will move that basket size higher, that are open to being moved.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, some customers are not going to be able to be
Right.
moved, and that's okay as well,
Yeah.
because if we take a picture at or take a look at how frequently they're coming into store, they might offset some of those bigger spenders, and so having an understanding of how everybody and all customers contribute to revenue shouldn't just be about if they hit a $74 basket size.
The math thing. Like I remember sitting in a math class, when will I ever use this stuff? It turns out talking about
Now.
buying and selling weed.
Yeah.
That's what if they had described it that way, if they had Krista Raymer come in and talk about how to sell cannabis at the right price points in a dispensary, I think I would have been much more interested about it.
I mean, at the time in high school, I kind of was like, "What am I doing here? This makes no sense. I don't need this math." And now there's lots of me where I'm like, "What was that
Right.
equation that I need to
Yeah.
build?" So
Well,
yeah,
luckily you can find those
there's real
equations.
There's
You
real
can find
world
them in Google
application.
Sheets. You can find them in Google
Yes.
Sheets. Yes.
Yes.
But if they're
But,
gonna be
like,
next
yeah,
next
knowing what data to look at too is the other part.
it would be a great class in high school math. Like,
How to sell more weed.
I mean, totally viable,
Totally viable. Yeah.
yeah. I
Legal
mean,
in many places.
absolutely.
Parental uproar
It
coming
would
in
be
hot.
this is actually an interesting, like, math course that you could create. Like, we'll call it retail math, like retail and analytics, and math and what high school kids need to know, but use cannabis as the product. It would be as opposed to widgets. They're always like talking about widgets in school. Like, actually put, eighths are this much, pre-rolls are this much, a pack of pre-rolls. Like, kids would be much more interested, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
We have
you
to make
could yeah, same thing applies for, like, consumer packaged goods.
yes.
Like, any kind of environment that's selling consumer packaged goods where you have a lot of units in one basket,
And
it's gonna
maybe
show
next
up in the
time I
same way.
will I'll share my grade 5 student. They create a classroom economy where they have their own
Okay.
currency. Everybody applies for a job. They make a certain amount of money for that job, but they also have to like buy goods and keep sustained. And like, there's someone who, there's like the people that collect rent. There's the people that sweep the floors. Like, there's a whole economy that has developed. It's really smart. But again, practical math used in school creates
Yeah.
these lifetime learning. And maybe it'll be
Yeah.
those kids that are working, running these dispensaries soon, and like it'll be easier to explain to them, Krista.
Real world examples, very helpful in
Real world.
application.
We should live so long to help the grade 5 kids now sell more weed at their dispensaries down the road. Krista, as always, it's good to see you on Thursdays. One quick note, because you actually referenced it, if not before, but I think you are in Missouri right now. Tomorrow, Chris Kasakia, who is a reporter for MJ Biz Daily, will be on this program at this time. We call it Reporters Notebook. It's our new partnership with MJ Biz. We have the best in the business come talk about what they have written during the week. Tomorrow, it's Chris Kasakia, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, where actually Chris is located. He'll be talking about Missouri recalls, Missouri packaging rules, recalls in California too, and even your favorite subject, border town dispensaries. We're going to talk a little bit about that too, because there's a lot happening, certainly Missouri, Ohio. There's a lot of conversation this week about Pennsylvania. Florida has some
Yeah.
implications. So we'll get to all of that with Chris tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern on our Reporter's Notebook. Krista, thank you again for stopping by on Thursday mornings as always. And if you are in a jurisdiction with legal cannabis, go buy cannabis at your local dispensary. It helps. And try to lift your basket size 10% today. How's that?
Make it $2.
Make it $2, even easier.
Make it $2.
All right. Have a good day, Krista.
Thanks, Jay. You too.